shootout there at, around Pine Ridge. And it was all where this next episode is going to take place, where the massacre takes place. What is the name of that town that the massacre takes place at? Anyway, we will get Wounded Knee. Wounded Knee. It's all at Wounded Knee where they're doing all this demonstrating and agitating and fighting with federal agents, and there's a lot of lawsuits still going through the courts in relation to that. Well, so it was right over Pine Ridge, and it was a big camp, and he saw his father and his mother's teepee. Any of you ever feel like that? You want to go home? Just want to go home to your mom and dad? Just want to go back, and you don't want to face the world anymore. You don't want to be in the world anymore. You just want your mom and dad to take care of you. That's what's so tender about this book. You just feel what he feels, and he wants to jump off the cloud and be with them. Doesn't want to be in this world as it is constructed. He wants to go back to his mommy and daddy, but he was sad because he could not get off. And it it was right over the very big town again. And then it stopped over a big town, and before he knew it, he was back on the ground, and you could hear the girl's voice, same as the earlier vision, right, when he was a boy. And a doctor and a girl and her father and mother and two sisters were looking at me in a queer way. They were frightened, as though they were afraid he was going to die, obviously. And they got better. And they said, while I was sitting at breakfast, I had looked up and smiled and then fallen like dead out of my chair. And I'd been dead for 3 days, just like earlier. And then what happens after that, in that chapter? How does he get home? Pahuska. Pahuska is in town. He hadn't been with Pahuska anymore. Why? Because he got lost in Manchester, and he missed the train. He got hooked up with someone called, what was it, Black Joe, Indian Joe, something like that. I forget who the guy you just mentioned was. Who's Pahuska again? Custer, but not here. It's not Custer. They're both called Pahuska. Why? Because they got long hair. Yeah. It's Buffalo Bill. You say, who? Buffalo Bill? Well, Buffalo Bill is a famous name in American folklore, in case you haven't heard of him. You know, he's like Custer and Buffalo Bill. Like, I mean, they just roll off the tongue, sort of like Jesse James and Billy the Kid. You know, though I think these are more interesting people than Jesse James or Billy the Kid, frankly. You know, Custer, with all his faults, is an interesting person, and you see that Buffalo Bill is interesting. So what happens? These are real scenes. Buffalo Bill gives him money to go home. And even though he's not in the show anymore, he gives him money to go home. Well, that's really shows what kind of guy he is. Yeah, he's a real stand-up guy. As Bill O'Reilly would say on the O'Reilly show, he always says, "You're a stand-up guy." If you ever watched that, everyone he likes is a stand-up guy. Anyway, they took me to the show, and he had all the people give me 3 cheers, and I told him I was sick to go home, and he said he would fix that. And he gave me a ticket at $90. That's really pretty cool. Pahuska had a strong arm, even though he made his living originally by killing buffalo. And a policeman came and told me to get my things and took me to the Iron Road. I don't know why a policeman was doing this, but maybe he was in Buffalo Bill's employ, I don't know. And then the fire boat was back at the big country, and I was in my own country again, and we came to Rushville, which is in probably South Dakota, at the end of the railroad then, and there were no Lakotas, but there was a covered wagon with mules starting out from Pine Ridge. And all the Lakotas were there. So it is 1889, this is the year of the treaty, when the Wasechus brought more of the land. All that was between Smoky Earth and Good River. And I had been gone nearly 3 years and knew nothing about this foolish thing until then. And my parents were in I went right to my mother's teepee, and my parents were a great joy to see me and cried because she was so happy. And my mother told me she dreamed one night in her sleep that I had come back on a cloud but could not stay. and I told her my vision. You believe that? You believe she saw it? Yeah, I think those things happen. Okay, so the last two chapters here, or last 2 or 3 chapters, are about the Battle of Wounded Knee. And if you don't know the Battle of Wounded Knee, this is a big thing for American, Indian, Native American, if you want to call it that, activists even today, who, God, I can't find my marker. I'm trying to see if this one marks. But Wounded Knee, yeah, there's a lot of ink in this one here. Let me do it down there. Well, skip it. They make a lot of issue around Wounded Knee as a symbol. And what happened at Wounded Knee? Well, we're going to read it here, but anyone want to quickly just mention what happened there? Well, there's a pretty big massacre finally that occurred there at the time. I think it was around 18. It was the last really, the last so-called massacre or confrontation or whatever, the last gasp of all these things. Recently I was watching a movie on television. Maybe if you get the movie channels, you would have seen it. I think it was called, the title, it was about Geronimo. I think it was called Geronimo. Anyone seen that movie, Geronimo? Well, Geronimo is not just the name of that paratroop when they jump out of airplanes in the American Army. You know, he was a great Apache chief around the same time, and they could not subdue him. And one of the scenes in that movie is about dancing. You know, the federal troops come into the, Geronimo agrees to go back to the reservation. This is in Arizona. And the medicine men are whipping the people up into dancing, and the federal troops get nervous, and there's an exchange. And then Geronimo leaves the reservation with his people, and they try to hunt him down, but they can't. He's too evasive for them. He goes down into northern Mexico. Anyway, then finally he's got, these people have families, it's not just an army he's with, and they can't really survive fighting as guerrilla fighters all the time, and they finally are cut to almost nothing, but they still can't subdue him, and finally they send him down. This is the movie thing. They send a guy down who's been friendly, and they track him down, and they make a deal with him that if he'll surrender, like the Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse and others, that, you know, no harm will come to him, and he'll only have to go to prison, because all the Anglo settlers in Arizona are really angry because there's been a lot of massacring. They want to hang him, but they make a deal that they'll just send him to St. Augustine in Florida, to a fort there, and he'll have to